Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Raymond Yeung. Here are tonight's top stories. A pro-independence student activist gets 68 months in jail, and 3 co-defendants are sent to a training center. Health chief clarifies people who delist themselves from organ donation register won't fall foul of the law. And Tina Turner, hailed as the queen of rock and roll, dies at the age of 83. 4 members of a pro-independence group have been sentenced for their roles in a scheme to plant explosives in buildings, including courthouses. One was jailed for nearly 6 years, while the other 3 were sent to a training facility. Macy Mock reports.
4 members of returning Valiants were in court today for sentencing after admitting that they plotted to bomb public facilities, including court buildings. The former students had pleaded guilty to conspiring between April the 1st and July the 5th, 2021 to cause explosions likely to endanger life or property. The stiffest sentence, 5 years and 8 months in jail, was handed down to Alexander Au, who rented a hotel room in Tsim Sha Tsui to make improvised explosive devices. The other 3 were sent to a rehabilitation facility for young offenders for between 6 months and 3 years. High Court Judge Alex Lee said Au, aged 21, and 17-year-old Chan Chuk-hin inspected buildings, including the Kwun Tong and Chun Mun law courts, which were selected for placing the explosives. Law Kai-wing, aged 17, agreed to accept $500 to join the scheme, while 20-year-old Su Wing-ching was responsible for buying chemicals to make the bombs, but she was unsuccessful. Lee said the offense was very serious, and even though they failed to make explosives, they tried hard to make the plan work. The 3 younger defendants had minor roles, so they were ordered to undergo rehabilitation, the judge said. However, he said imprisonment was the only option for Au, who played a bigger role. The 4, along with 2 other members of the pro-independence group, were arrested in July 2021. The other 2 will be sentenced in September. One of them is Ho Yu Wang, who admitted conspiring to commit terrorist activities. The judge said Ho's notebook stated the scheme was aimed at damaging Hong Kong's stability. Maisie Mock, HKIBC.
Health Secretary Lo Chung-mau has condemned those who have used fake information to persuade potential organ donors to withdraw their offer. This comes as lawmakers approved a cross-border organ matching system. Chloe Fong reports.
Just days after Chief Executive Zhang Li ordered an investigation into a surge in withdrawals from the organ donation registry, lawmakers approved a non-binding motion on organ transplant cooperation with the mainland. Health Minister Lo Chung-mau said authorities are actively trying to improve the online register system after the recent withdrawals. But he stressed that the probe is targeting those who spread false information, and there are no legal implications for those who deregistered.
In the sense that those who have registered may not necessarily eventually donate their organ. On the other hand, many people who have not registered, finally the family decide to donate their organs.
Since December, there were almost 5,800 withdrawals applications, around half of which were invalid.
Unfortunately, we now have a small number of people with an ill intention to attack the system and try to create the sentiment that there are an exaggerated number of people who want to withdraw from this, who don't support this cross-border collaboration in organ transplant. We condemn any of these action of putting up fake information in the media to try to misguide our citizens to withdraw from the registry.
Lo noted that people needing a transplant have to wait a long time. The average waiting time to get a new kidney is 5 years and can be as long as 29 years. Chloe Fong, HKIBC.
Two civil service unions are calling on the government to raise salaries by at least 5% this year. They argued that a modest increase would boost morale and encourage civil servants to stay in their jobs. Macy Moore reports.
Civil service unions say the government should look at boosting morale and retaining manpower when considering a pay rise for its employees. Last week, a pay trend survey report suggested a salary raise of around 4.6% for junior and middle-ranking civil servants and 2.9% for senior staff.
克制同埋一個合理嘅訴求。
But Lee Kuan-yin of the Chinese Civil Servants Association wants a flat raise increase of 5.1%, which she described as modest. Lee said a higher rate than the ones recommended in the pay trend survey is needed to catch up with inflation during the 3 years of COVID and ease the pressure on staff amid a manpower shortage. The association is one of 4 labor unions that met the Civil Service Bureau today. The Government Employees Association also called for a 5% pay rise after a survey of its members found that the proposal by the Pay Trend Service Committee is too low. The Federation of Civil Service Unions hopes that the government will base its decision on the recommendations of the committee. Federation Chairwoman Suzanne Tong said any financial pressure faced by the government should not be used to determine the pay rise for its staff. She noted that civil servants were disappointed last year when they all received a 2.5% raise, although the pay trend survey suggested an increase of up to 7.3%. Lisa Mock, HKIBC.
Turning overseas, the bid by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis to capture the White House kicked off on an embarrassing note. He intended to declare his candidacy in next year's presidential election during an online forum on Twitter. But glitches meant that there was no sound for long periods, and thousands of users were unable to join. DeSantis is a hardline conservative who has angered the gay community, alienated people of color, and challenged Disneyland. His main Republican rival is former President Donald Trump, who holds a commanding lead over the Florida governor. A Russian paramilitary group has warned Moscow of more incursions into the Belgorod region bordering Ukraine.
When the Ukrainian military command found out that there's Russian volunteers fighting this war, of course they supported us, so we support them in the freedom fight. So what they do, we obviously coordinate our actions, but before the border, the state border of Ukraine. Everything we do behind the state border of Ukraine is our decision.
Russia accused Ukrainian militants of attacking Belgorod earlier this week. But Ukraine said the raids were carried out by Nikitin's Russian Volunteer Corps and another anti-Kremlin group called the Liberty of Russia Legion. The Russian paramilitaries denied Moscow's claim that 70 of their men were killed during the assault. Several civilians were injured in the attack, according to Moscow. A powerful typhoon that lashed Guam is gathering strength as it moves away from the U.S. Pacific territory. The storm named Mawar caused extensive damage across the island, but there have been no reports of casualties. Many households are without power, and Guam's airport was flooded. Crews have been clearing roads blocked by fallen trees. Although many roads are now passable, residents have been told to stay indoors until they get the all clear. The biggest names in show business have joined legions of fans in paying tribute to the Queen of Rock and Roll, Tina Turner, who has died at the age of 83. Turner rose to fame in the 1960s when she and her husband Ike had several top hits. She reached greater heights when she went solo after the couple divorced. Her dynamic performances on stage and unique vocals won her fans around the globe. Turner's hits, including What's Love Got to Do With It and Proud Mary, won her 8 Grammy Awards and inspired younger stars such as Beyoncé and Rihanna. The legendary entertainer, who was born in the United States, died at her home in Switzerland after a long illness. Macau's economy surged 39% in the first quarter from a year earlier, as the world's biggest gambling center shook off the effects of COVID. The city's gross domestic product between January and March turned positive for the first time in 5 quarters. There was a sharp rise in gaming revenue as tourists flocked back to the city after COVID restrictions were lifted. The resumption of package tours boosted the tourism industry. Higher spending helped to create jobs, sending the local unemployment rate down to 2.8%. The Hong Kong stock market has slumped to a 6-month low amid a widening tech dispute between China and the United States. On the eve of the Buddha's birthday holiday, the Hang Seng Index plunged 1.9%, closing below 19,000 points for the first time since December. Tech titans led the retreat, with Tencent and Alibaba shedding 3% each. Food delivery giant Meituan gave up 3.4%. Mainland developers headed south. Longfor lost 2.6%, and Country Garden fell 1.3%. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng Index ended the week down by 369 points. The top 10 active stocks. The Tracker Fund was down 34 cents. Tencent was down by $10, while Alibaba was down $2.40. BYD Company lost $13.40. China Construction Bank down 7 cents, while China Mobile lost half a dollar. To the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar, the euro is at 8.41, the pound sterling 9.69, while the Australian dollar at 5.12. And in Europe, the London FTSE is currently down 20 points. Finally, the weather. A mix of sunny periods and showers on Buddha's birthday tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 26 and 31 degrees. The mercury will hit 32 degrees this weekend. Now let's take a look at the forecast around the world. That's our main news for Thursday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Raymond Yeung. Good night.